doo doo doo. Boo doo 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 doo. Boom 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 doo 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 doo. I bet people are going crazy, 'cause my audio's only in one ear. Now it should be in both ears. Now the audio should be in both ears. Oh, oh, whoa, both ears audio. Both ears audio. Oh, starting the show 3 minutes late. Oh no, it's 5 minutes late. We was waiting on our guest, but I don't know where the guest is. Delicious coffee. What's up, everybody? It's Monday, and I'm yelling into the microphone. Sorry about that. Oh, am I too tall today? I'm too tall today. All right, well, we're here. We're live. We're 5 minutes late, and our guest of the hour has not arrived. So, we start the show, because I waited 5 minutes. I gave that 5-minute grace period, you know what I'm saying? 5-minute grace period, and has not arrived. But, you know, the baby's here. Samantha is here, so hopefully our guest will be able to get here when he gets here. I believe he's stuck. I believe he is stuck in traffic or something. I think that's the case. A lot of people were asking early, hey, who's the guest? In the early chat, people were wondering who the guest is. The guest is Bentley Pascal, but he is not here yet. So we shall see when he gets here, what the deal is, and what's going on with all that. Oops, hold on. And, you know, it's Monday, so it definitely is... It definitely is a Monday out here in the world. It definitely is. It's 100% like Monday style up in this piece, if you know what I'm saying. And, you know, that's kind of the deal around this world, this neck of the woods. And that's okay. But let's start the show out and say hi to some of the early people in the chat. Sopa Loco, Jessica Thiegartner, Thiegartner, I don't know. Jessica T. Big D Smoke, Mellow Moogle, Jackson K, Alana Suki, Jake D, and then it's just a whole lot of people saying hi. So, but hello to everybody. Glad to be here. Love to see all your lovely, shiny faces up into the chat, seeing what's going on. Mellow Moogle says, become a member on the channel if you can. If it's something that you're into. I guess addressing the membership thing. Some people see value, some people don't see value. It seems like there's some people that are like, oh, yes, that's a good deal. And there are some people that are like, oh, that's not a good deal. I don't like that. I get it. I get your feelings. I just wanted to let you all know I understand your feelings. And I appreciate you. I really do. But I don't appreciate a bunch of comments with a bunch of F-bombs in it on my channel. So, y'all been deleted. See you later. And thumbs up to all the regular people who know how to just express themselves in the standard issue wording. Like maybe you're like, hey, I don't like this because I don't have $5 to become a member. Okay, I get it. But I also produce a bunch of videos every month, and we do 3 other live streams every week, which would, I think, be like 12 of them. So you could all definitely be onto those, you know? So, I don't know. I just feel like it's a thing, and I wanted to express here at the beginning of the show a bunch of angry nonsense is just... I'm not tolerating it. I don't care. People want to talk about freedom of speech, as I say with air quotes around it, or censorship or any of that kind of stuff. I don't care. I would like people to know that if you can't put together somewhat of a coherent sentence in just regular conversational type tone, it's easy. Just click a button and see you later. Alana Suki saying, wow, almost $5 off the Easy Green. Yes, that is a topic that is at hand right now. Let's actually talk about that, as I feel like I just vented my little bit of frustration at the internet for a second there. I did post that onto the community page. I posted that onto the Patreon, and I even went to the extent of letting people know about it on Facebook. Right. I let everybody know that Corey he dropped the price of Easy Green on the standard size bottle. So the regular bottle, not the big giant bottles. The big giant bottles, I think, are the same price from my understanding, that like the packaging and all that stuff costs more, and there isn't much that he can do about it. So, but on the standard bottle, he dropped it by $5 a bottle. And that's, that's definitely one of the things that Corey and I have talked about on a lot of occasions. And one of the reasons that I work with Corey, one of the reasons that we talk about the Aquarium Co-op and why we have, an affiliate sponsorship with them, is that, Corey's motivation in this hobby is to expand the hobby, to make the hobby better for people out there, whether it's a hobby or even if you're trying to like turn it into a job, right? Like maybe you're somebody who wants to become a breeder. Maybe you're somebody who wants to become, I don't know, what would the word for that be? Like farmer is probably the closest thing, but like maybe you want to become somebody who's running a small aquarium plant nursery or something. I don't know, whatever you want to do. Maybe you want to become a shrimp breeder. Maybe you want to just, maybe you want to become a guy who makes fish videos. I don't know. I don't know what you guys want to do, but we want to expand it and make it easier for people and more accessible for people. I definitely agree with his statement on that, and we've discussed it probably 100 times. We've discussed it at length. His motivation of doing the Aquarium Co-op and being online and all that kind of stuff is not necessarily to just make a ton of money. His thing is to make it more accessible, to find products that are more effective for people, so you're not, spending a ton of extra money. Well, with his fertilizer, and one of the reasons I like to use his fertilizer, it has all of the fertilizing content that I want. I do have to use the Easy Iron also, so I use those two, because you can't put the iron in the Easy Green, for science reasons, which we won't get into. It's not a big deal. But I do use that fertilizer. One of the big reasons is that he has it made in the United States. It has everything in it that I want in a fertilizer. It's basically the same makeup that I would make from dry fertilizers, right? And, he bulk orders it as much as possible. And I actually went with him to go get it. Last time we went to go, he went to go get it. We loaded his whole entire U-Haul up. We had to drive however far we had to drive. It was hours and hours. It took a whole entire day. We actually went and got it physically ourselves. We went and picked up all of the boxes and put them into the truck, drove the truck back. It's a lot of work, but his goal is to pass on the savings to you guys. Obviously, he's still making money off of it, right? So that he could pay his employees, continue operating his business, and also pay his bills and stuff like that. But he did a price. He basically crunched the numbers super hard, which is hilarious. I don't know if you guys. Okay, I was about to say something. I do know that you guys don't hang out with Corey on a regular basis, but I do, and the dude is constantly working on spreadsheets and math whizzing and stuff. And he brought Randy in, who's another guy who's math whizzing and looking at spreadsheets and analysis and projection reports and all that kind of crazy stuff. And they figured it out. They brought it down from, I think it was $18.99. I think now it's $13.99 a bottle. And they're like, yeah, we can operate with, with the bulk orders that they're putting in now. They're big enough orders that they're able to drop that down. So I feel like instead of doing an air quote sale, that's he's changed the I guess the the mode of the business in order to like get rid of a sale, right? Instead of being like, oh, something's 20% off for a week, it's just like, how about it's just 20% off all the time kind of deal, right? So he's really doing that. He's just, he has an idea and he's just pushing it that direction, and I appreciate it. So I feel like try to pass it on to you guys. And as you know, full disclosure, he is a sponsor of the show, so there's an affiliate sponsor. So if you guys buy through my link or whatever, lets them know that I sent it, and I get a small percentage of the sale. So, if you don't like that and that doesn't sound like a good deal to you, then okay, you don't have to. Ain't nobody forcing you to do nothing. And Josh Kelly said Easy Iron is down to $12.99. And to be honest with you, I don't know how much Easy Iron was before. So I don't know if it went down or up. Like I don't know. But it just seems like a good deal to me, just how long it lasts. And Rod S says, I believe Easy Green has iron. Yes, it does have a little bit of iron in it. It's, I like the supplemental iron. It just helps, it makes it easier for my red plants to just get a little extra red, and I feel like, because when I got Easy Iron, I bought the bottles that were screwed up. I bought the damaged bottles. So I don't know how much Easy Iron is supposed to be. And, because I don't care about a damaged bottle. It doesn't bother me. But I ended up getting that. But the way I look at it is like, I think I do. Let's see. So on the 150, I do like 4 pumps a week. Like on the 240, I do like 6 pumps a week, something like that. But it's lasting a really long time. So I feel like $12.99 for like, even if it was 4 months or 5 months, so I'd only need to get one like 2 or 3 times a year. I feel like that's like a pretty good deal as far as I'm concerned, just to get the iron in and not have to deal with dry ferts or any of that kind of nonsense. So, using it in conjunction with really good substrate, I'm using some pretty decent substrates and stuff. I have found it to work quite well. So, if you guys like that advice, or if that's advice that you think you could put to use, cool. If you feel like you've heard this before, sorry, bros, it's Monday, and I thought we were gonna have a guest here. We were gonna talk about rainbow fish, and he has not arrived yet. I hope he didn't get run over in traffic. I don't know what happened. To Bentley. He disappeared. Hopefully he's okay. He's probably just stuck in traffic. I was out in traffic earlier today, and it was hit and miss. There were times where it's like, oh, we're going fast. Check this out, and then all of a sudden it's like, oh, we're going 4 miles an hour now. Oh, now we're going 0. So it's probably kept up that way. It's really sunny out here in Western Washington today, which means everybody's going to drive all bonkers and not able to figure it out. So we'll see when he gets here. Hopefully we can talk about some fish then, some rainbow fish. I'm interested to hear like what projects he's got going and like what's got coming down the pipe. But as you know, I'm always very excited. Fish Tank Barn says, is there an iron test kit I would like to have, like you have for calcium, magnesium, alkalinity in a reef tank? Off the top of my head, there is an FE test kit. I can't remember who makes it. I think, does API make an iron test kit?
I think so.
I think they do. It's been like a million years since I tested for iron. Honestly, I'm pretty trustworthy when it comes down to like certain products and things like that, right? Certain companies that I trust. Hold on a minute. I realize I'm peeking. Am I peeking? Yeah. Okay, there we go. I was peeking super hard. Sorry about that, guys. Somebody out there with their headphones is like, oh my God, my earballs. You guys can't hear yet. Do I have your mic on? Oh, I do.
Oh, you do?
Yeah. Okay. Hold on a minute. I gotta change the audio setting. We gotta go to none and then apply, and that should work. Okay. Well, give me a check.
Hello, wonderful people.
Oh, you're too far. You're too far from the mic.
Oh, yeah. Greetings.
Is that good?
Can you all hear me well? Anybody?
Yeah, I can hear you all right. Feel free to yell because it's super loud in here. All right. Well, okay, so we're going to move on from that topic, and since our guest has finally arrived, I don't want to be super distracted. But if you feel like supporting the show, become a member. If you don't feel like supporting the show, then don't. Or you can go to Patreon and have the whole Patreon experience. You can go over there and check that out too, if you like. It's, it's one of those things. As I mentioned earlier, some people are upset. And I'm sorry for you. I'm sorry for your sad life. You know what I mean?
People are really upset?
Yeah, I'll show you.
Oh, man,
show you.
I gotta see this.
I saved it on my phone. I thought it was funny.
I felt special because I got a serial disliker.
Oh, hold on. I want you to
It's my favorite.
hold on. I'm gonna get Bentley. I'm gonna get Bentley to read it. I don't know if you could read it to me because you could be able to censor it.
I can censor it.
Okay, you can censor it.
I did at one point work in radio, sir.
Oh, you know how to radio. radio. Okay, here we go. Yeah, here you go. Okay, let's get my reaction. Here we go.
Wow. Okay. LMFAO. Sorry, I hate acronyms sometimes, but I also like them at the same time. You're such a... A? Let's go with A. Dude, always rattling your tin cup, begging for money. The only reason you only have 80% of your subs is thanks to Corey from Aquarium Coop. Because, co-op actually has a hyphen between co and op.
Oh, yeah.
For those who like English. It's true, and don't deny it. Oh, God, the grammar here is horrific. I'm cleaning this up, by the way. You're apparently just a builder guy.
I'm just a builder guy. Okay.
So does that mean that you're the actual king of DIY?
No.
Because if you're the builder guy, one would think. God, the rest of this is a train wreck.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know. I have a tiny channel, but I come from a kind of a golden rule of be civil. There's a way to have civil discourse. If you don't like something, there's such a better way to put it. I don't understand.
Yeah.
It just drives me crazy sometimes.
I thought it was funny, but either way. All right. Introducing our guest on the show. Oh, man, I got it framed up, too. I don't even have to move the camera.
Oh, fantastic.
I'll have to move it a little bit.
Uh-oh.
Hold on. No, let's go rule of thirds. You look cooler that way. Because you're kind of off to the side a little bit. I like it. But our guest here is Bentley Pascal, if you don't know him. He's right there. If you haven't been over to his channel, check it out, because he's definitely got some cool stuff on there. He's got some different style and things like that. But he definitely highlights a lot about, he's got plant stuff going on for sure.
Definitely.
He's definitely got the rainbow fish stuff going on. He's got a big...
Most certainly.
He's got mostly just crazy breeding projects and stuff like that. With his rainbow fish, he's obsessed. He's obsessed about rainbow fish. And I don't blame you.
That's probably correct.
Oh, my gosh. Hold on, folks. Joe Rogan just went live with Brendan Schaub, and I just got the notification.
Ooh.
All right. I don't blame you if you leave. I don't blame you. That's going to be jokes for days.
Yeah, I mean,
I'm going to watch it later.
Schaub's kind of like a serial guest, though. He's on there
Yeah.
relatively often.
The reason this is about why I was going to bring that up, because I was like, Bentley's just like Brendan Schaub on
I
here.
don't know about that yet.
Well, we're going to get there. That's going to be the point of the future someday. As was going on earlier, it's kind of funny that popped up. It literally just popped up, and I was like, oh, man, I was going to mention this at one point. Was that because of people like AB Shoelace, who just became a member, if we can,
Sweet.
there is hopefully some point in time in the future that we have a guest on here all the time, because if we can make it, I mean, it sounds like a weird thing to say out loud, but if we can make it financially responsible, right? If we can make it financially feasible, there we go, that's a better word, then it's something that we could do, then we're going to do it. I think there was a lot of criticism because people were like, "Oh, you and Corey don't do the real fish talk anymore." But the reality is, it came 100% down to a financial decision that Corey and I weren't getting a bunch of work done that we needed to get done.
Yeah.
Us independently, and it was turning into a whole day project, right? And then we kind of like stopped doing it, and then we both realized like, oh, we have a ton of work to do. There's no way we're gonna free up the day.
And I mean, not to mention that, like, also behind the scenes, you also have Jimmy there the entire time. So
Right.
that means that he's not editing other video content or out filming or what have you, whatever projects Jimmy needs to do.
Just doing whatever. Yeah.
And there's some other like side time sinks associated, like loading them up and getting all of the proper descriptions attached. All that, they have their cost in time, and in some cases money,
Right.
that we listeners don't see.
Yeah.
But when you peek behind the curtain, you realize there's a lot more than just the hour and a half to 2 hours you guys are on air.
Yeah. I mean, that's the big thing is that it's like it turned into like it's a whole day project. It really is. Like and yeah, also Jimmy's time also included in that, and of course Corey pays Jimmy, and I wasn't getting paid. And we tried to do it. I mean, we did 50 episodes.
Yeah.
I feel like 50 episodes is like a big enough chunk to be like, okay, what do we do now? What do we do next?
Yeah.
And it's sort of like what we do next was it just kind of was going like this and just slowly getting less and less and less and less, and it was like, okay.
Yeah, and you also can't always have like the the awesome guests like Gary Lang or something like that in town.
Right. I mean, to get them to come out to Seattle
without
like,
flying each person out individually per show, and that will get crazy exorbitant when it comes to cost.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, that's
as much as I want to see like George Farmer over here in Seattle finally. Like,
yeah,
that's not a cheap date.
I'm not sure if George is coming to the AGA or not.
I don't know.
I'm not sure because I thought he was coming to the AGA, but
I think the
now
only one
I'm
that's
unsure.
like really on the hook is Chris, right? Chris Lukup.
I think Lukup's coming because of Dennerley and stuff.
Right.
But I'm not sure. I haven't talked to Chris in a while, so I'm not sure. But I think last time I talked to George, I thought he was coming out for it, but I don't know. So
I can hope.
Couldn't say 100%. But George Farmer is a great guy. I love hanging out with him. I've hung out with him in Europe a couple of times, and like New Jersey and a couple other places. Every time, stellar dude, awesome guy, does great work too. The only thing I ever have a concern with George is that he just seems way too busy. Like even people that I know that are extraordinarily busy, he seems like even more busy than that all the time. It's super funny.
Yeah.
So that would be my only criticism is like maybe just take it down just a little bit so you got an extra 10 minutes here and there. That's always been my little bit of concern for him. But he knows that. I've mentioned it to him many times. And I'm like, just calm it down just a tiny bit.
And then for those of you who are waiting in chat, because I had your show like running on the side on my phone while I was driving through the delight that is the Seattle area's traffic.
Oh, it's a nightmare. It's a night terror.
Car that
it's not a nightmare. It's a night terror.
Clearly been on the side of the road for a long time because a Department of Transportation truck was there to assist them already.
Yeah.
Caused easily a 20-minute backup. It was just 20 minutes of bumper to bumper going through. Like between Joel's place and mine, there's a town called Fife, and basically it was just solid wall to wall, bumper to bumper, slow down.
Yep. And just wait.
Yeah, I moved it about 6 inches. That was great.
And Fife is one of
So
those
bad.
weird. Fife is one of those weird spots of the world, and I don't know. I don't have another geographical location that I could easily reference to. I mean, I know San Francisco has problems like this. I know there's spots in LA that are like this, New York, blah blah blah, all around. But Fife is one of those spots where the ocean gets in the way of getting off the freeway, right? Mm-hmm. Like you could get off of the freeway, but there's ocean just a little ways over there, so there's really no roads to just get through, right? And so there's only one other road that you can like go onto. But over the years, that has so many businesses on it that there's a traffic light every 15 feet.
Yeah.
So if you go to that one road, it's like, stop, and then it's like there's so many traffic lights that it just piles up. So you're like, all right, I might as well stay on the freeway. So if you try to get off the freeway and go to the other side, there's unfortunately a Native American reservation, right, that butts up to another Native American reservation, and there's no roads going through that part.
Yeah.
Except for ones that are going diagonally weird. So you can't even get over to the other roads because basically the reservation said, like, no, you can't put any thoroughfares through here.
Yeah, it's a really strange area
super
for trying
weird
to travel
spot.
through. And it just causes bottlenecks in the only 2 spots that you can get through.
Yeah, and of course, all the Native American reservations, I don't know what it's like in the rest of the U.S. or the world or anything like that, but those reservations can legally have casinos on them, right?
And more importantly, they can have slot machines in their casinos.
Well, they can legally have like full-on casinos.
Everything that you can have in Vegas, which in Washington State you cannot do that unless you are a tribal casino.
Yeah, so you have to be, you have to be in one of the native corporations in order to be able to do that. But they've put those casinos like right up as close as possible to the freeway.
Yeah.
Because that's where the reservation like comes up to. So it's like, not only do you have like a traffic jam from like occasional accidents and all that kind of stuff, but the freeway has to make this weird loopy turn and then another turn. And then there's all these casinos right there, and there's no way to get off of the freeway and like go on a different freeway. It's one of those times. I don't know how many times I've texted to Vicky. I'm like, Fife, just the word Fife. It's a 4-letter word that begins with F. It's magical.
And if you're up here, it's basically a curse word.
It's basically a curse word. You're just like, where are you? And it's like, Fife. It's like, okay. I may never be home. I don't know. I might live here now. So yeah, it's just so I fully understand and I can 100% relate. One night I was driving home and it was like 11 p.m. and there was a major traffic jam.
Yeah,
major traffic jam in Fife, and I was just sitting there and I was so mad. I mean, I didn't do anything weird, but I was just like growling, because you're just like, I just want to be home. I'm so tired.
Yeah.
And then you you finally get to the end, and it's like the only thing at the end of the traffic jam was like somebody with a 1998 Honda Accord with the hazard lights on just parked on the side of the road. It's not on fire. It's not, you know what I mean? It's like literally somebody's
responsible person taking a cell phone call on the side of the road safely rather than driving and taking their cell phone call.
Yeah. And you're just like, oh man, all that, you know what I mean? Like, I don't want anybody to be injured, right? I certainly do not. That is not what I'm about to say. But when I get to the end of a traffic jam, I would like to see something on fire or something. I mean, come on. You know what I mean? Like, is that irrational? Like, I want everyone to be safe. Like, maybe the car started to smell funny. They pulled over. They got out. And then it caught on fire?
Yeah, or at least like...
And I guess the reason that's on my mind is that there was a semi this weekend that was driving towards Fife, and it just caught on fire.
How terrifying.
The driver was out of the car because I was watching it on the news live. They're like, apparently there's a semi on the road that's on fire. And so they like go to the traffic camera on the freeway, and then it's like kind of burning, and then it's like starts burning more, and then it kind of starts burning more, and they're like, oh, well, Jane, this video's live right now, and doesn't seem to be anybody on the scene, and it's starting to get to be more on fire. It was hilarious. I'm like, oh, unscripted news people, like trying to figure out like there's a truck on fire somewhere. It's hilarious. But anyhow, sorry. Yeah, we got totally sidetracked.
Very long tangent.
Traffic
sorry,
talk.
Folks.
Traffic talk, guys. But it's nice to see everybody out today. We've got a whole bunch of people in the chat. I don't know if we have any Bentley type questions, but Bentley is here, and I was trying to give your background. Did I give your background? Did I do it all right?
It sounded pretty accurate.
Okay. He's got a bunch of breeding tanks. He's a fish head just like you and I. He's a plant head. Is that a word? That's not a word. He's into plants, horticulture.
I am a.
What's the fish culture? What's the like fancy name for being into fish culture? Like pescatarian?
Well, that's when you eat them.
That's when you eat them. Maybe you're like way into it, breeding my own fish and eating them. It doesn't seem possible to me. I can't even catch all of the rummy-nosed tetras.
You're a ornamental
I'd
fisheries hobbyist.
Hobbyist?
I don't. That seems like the furthest I can go. 'Cause you're certainly not a biologist, right? We're not talking like fisheries biologists.
I'm not a biologist. I'm like an amateur something. I just know stuff from screwing up.
Yeah, that's basically where I'm at.
And going like, oh, I don't want to do that again.
I know plenty from making mistakes.
I remember a buddy of mine posted, he was like, I don't understand why I got to do everything the hard way. It's like, yeah, me neither, man. I don't know why you got to do everything the hard way.
I think that's called the human experience.
I think that's pretty much how it goes. Mellow Moogle says aquarist.
I mean, yeah, that's probably the most technical term.
This would be like the age of aquarist,
Oh,
right?
Lord.
Yeah. Okay. But my yeah. So what I wanted to talk to you about today, what big project do you got going on? Because you're always breeding rainbows, which personally I find to be.
It's very tedious.
It's
very tedious.
It's a good way to put it. Tedious. Yeah.
Well, so you and I are working on a project to get about 100-gallon acrylic before the sump. So it'll probably be about 130 gallons total if you account for what the sump will be holding and not its max capacity. That's going to be a permanent living system, but also a grow out system for like 50 Chilatharina blaheri, which are absolutely gorgeous rainbow, especially if you get the right bloodline and not the muddled Florida pond bred one.
Not the left one.
Not the one that just looks like salmony pink the whole way through. It actually has greens and reds. And
Oh, right.
and, like, all the pretty colors.
It's totally one of the rainbow fish that I'm like, oh wow, that's so pretty.
Yeah,
and I'm not familiar with it, so I just have to be like, yeah, that's a real pretty one.
Well,
because back in the day when I got into rainbows, like there just wasn't that many.
well, I mean,
And like when I say I like got into rainbows, it was like, oh, those are cool. I'm interested in looking into those.
that's
and
a
then
neat fish.
yeah, and then it was like, oh yeah, maybe someday I'll get some.
Well,
and
I can
then
remember,
I never,
like when I was
you know.
a kid and started to actually acquire knowledge outside of my parents do all the stuff and I just feed the pretty fish. I don't remember ever seeing rainbow fish in a store. But I mean, granted, we're talking the 80s.
Right.
So it makes a certain amount of sense because even if you listen to like, say, Gary Lang or something, he really had to track them down in order to get any of the good ones. So when it came back to the hobby, I'd see them in stores and they'd always still be at that like silver minnow looking stage. They wouldn't have any color.
Right.
So I'd ignore them until I saw the Gary Lang tour. And I was like, okay, I don't want discus. I want that. I want that real bad. And now that's almost all I have other than one giant tank full of guppies.
Right.
Which I love those guppies.
I love those guppies too. Can't break my stupid 2 guppy thing until my guppies breed though. I don't even know why I ever even agreed to even think that that was an idea of something that I should possibly do. You know what I mean? Do you know what I'm saying? Like, how did I ever even like get roped into some like thinking that that was a thing that I should be involved
in? I
in?
hope that little guy's doing some work.
It makes no sense. I mean, it almost. It's 2019, Bentley.
Well, yeah.
It's 2019. It makes no sense. It's not like I'm a forerunner in guppy care breeding project.
And yet you gave yourself one heck of a challenge that should probably be prescribed to at least a live bearer specialist.
I mean, I've bred a ton of live bearers.
Right, but you're starting with a really big system and 2 fish.
So
Just say
they know where each other are.
That's a thing.
They know where each other are.
Maybe she's just avoiding him the whole
It's
time.
got to play some
Just running away.
Barry White. No, I've seen him. I've seen him mate. I have concerns that she's sterile at this point.
Oh,
you know,
that could be a problem.
Because she has definitely, you know, when I had her, she definitely has displayed a lot of the, you know, basically that she's basically looked pregnant the whole time. which is typically a bad sign for live bearers. That like, oh, if you have a female that just looks pregnant all the time, yet there's no babies, like that's typically not good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or it's the stone cold killer mom. 'Cause I've had that before.
In that tank, there would be one on the loose.
Yeah, you would think so.
There would be one.
There's a lot of room to hide.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. So, a little bit weird. Let me see what has happened to this chat.
Chat might be going crazy.
I don't know. What happened?
I'm
Let's
trying
see
not to have
here.
chat on my phone this time because I don't want to be doing this the whole time.
Yeah. Which,
So I'm
so
trying to
what?
like peek over there.
So that big project that you got coming is the tank. We're gonna build the stand,
Right.
And well, you know,
Plumb
plumb
up the
the
sump.
plumb
And
the
then
system and stuff.
Once we do that, it actually frees a 20 log that's in my bedroom, which lets me move some fish out of my fry system, fish that will naturally stay smaller, and that gives me that. And I've got, I think, 7 or so 10 gallons that I need to get set up over basically the next 2 weekends. And then that is where I can start raising fry, and I'll start really actively breeding the Bosemani that I got from Bob Steenfot, because those are from Gary Lang's line. They're in a Tinjo Bosemani.
Okay.
Once I've bred probably 200 or 300 fish out of those adults, I'll start my Eleni Wapogas should be old enough to then reliably give me good size eggs, and then I'll shift to breeding those fish because there are really not enough of those around, and they're way too cool a fish not to have hundreds and hundreds around.
Gareth Doyle says, I get the reason for panned audio, but listening with one headphone is difficult. It's like choosing between a favorite child. Well, the unfortunate thing is that
I'm surprised there's not a way to easily output this as mono.
so each microphone
Yeah, I know
is
that
mono.
they're individual channels, but just as the combined mono signal.
Well, I don't know. Let's see if we can combine it and if it works.
I'd have to sit and probably play radio engineer for a while.
Let me try average left and right. Let's see if that works. We shall find out
What does
if
this do?
average left and right works or not. I don't know. I don't think it necessarily will work, but we will find out.
Time for
Yeah.
live.
Let's see what
engineering.
happens.
It's
We're
gonna
going
be
to
real
do
scary.
live engineering, and people will be like, oh my God, I can't hear anything. And I'll be like, I don't know. You're probably right. Oh, I wonder if I can actually. Let me see.
I mean, you could probably delay audio, but then you'll get the weird loop sound.
Well, no. I mean, I have a. Let me see. What do we got here? Where's my channel? I have to go find my channel. Oh, look. I'm right there.
See, I'm someone who's been
see how
on
this goes.
live streams. I've never done live streams on my own show, so I have no clue how to do any of this through YouTube side.
Here we go. Let's see. I don't know. So we're. Does that work?
It sounds fine on a phone.
It sounds right on the phone, but we have to go like
does
this.
Does it go right on headphones?
It's like we could literally just listen to ourselves on stream, but then eventually we'll just be listening to ourselves on the stream.
Yeah, the loop starts getting real scary real
Yeah,
fast.
then it starts to get real weird. They said turn Bentley up a little bit, so I'm gonna try that, and we'll.
Sorry, I'm trying not to like really hug the mic too hard.
Yeah, these don't pick up a lot. You have to kind of like bark into them
They both do and don't.
a fair bit. Well, they do. They don't. Well, it depends on the software that you're running them into. Like these are the SM7Bs. I think.
Right.
Am I saying that right? Yeah.
Yes.
Like they pick up a good clean audio, but it's just not strong signal. The signal coming off of it, and I even have them running into a cloud lifter.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's like it's even boosted from the mic through the cloud lifter into the.
Yeah, the problem
Yeah.
starts becoming in microphone technology when you boost it too much, you pick up too much background audio,
Mm-hmm.
or just generic white noise, which is why these microphones are the way they are. They get really beautiful audio,
Yeah.
and I eventually want one of these, but that's a budget thing.
Yeah. How are we gonna get Bentley an SM7B?
Time and patience is, I believe, my answer.
I think they're only like $400 now.
Yeah, they're going down, but you know,
They went down from like $409 to like $400.
I
They're
believe
like, hey, they're $399.99. Check
I
that
would
deal.
love to just like go into my old radio studio when I worked in radio and just walk out with that bad boy. But
I did see that
they get a little angry when you do
I
that.
did see that the blue
the Yeti
nah, Yetis suck.
or the Snowball.
No, they have the what is it, the butterfly or the dragonfly?
You sure?
That actually came down in price, and I was actually thinking about picking one up just for because when I was a kid and when I was in audio engineering, those things cost like $7,000, and I
Yeah.
saw one the other day for $199.99, brand new, same microphone, and
That's
I
not
was
bad.
like, I might just buy that just because screw my childhood, you know? Like those things were so expensive. Like we literally had to like basically give our ID and a credit card when we checked them out of the studio in the studio.
Yeah.
Like we didn't take them out anywhere. It
Yeah,
was
they
like,
don't- they don't want you
no, we're
walking around
literally
with
going to use this microphone right over there. And it's like, well, give me your wallet then. Kind of deal. Luckily, I didn't have a driver's license back then, so they just kind of were holding on to a chunk of leather that was folded in half with like whatever crap I had in there. I'm not sure. It's probably like business cards from places.
Something vaguely useful.
But we got a super chat here about some fish from Mr.
Uh-oh.
James Lyser. What's up, my man? And he says, Bentley, have you heard of any rainbows that like 70 degrees or below?
So I would guess that your best bet is going to be some of the rainbows that are saltwater tolerant or brackish water tolerant. So technically, if you want to be hyper technical, they're not rainbow fish because you're talking pseudomagills. But the Cyanodorsalis is a pretty high salinity brackish water fish, which is why it's not super popular and why it's not common in a store. Very easy to keep, very hardy, very easy to breed, absolutely beautiful, big bright blue stripe across the top of its body,
Okay.
little tints of yellow in the tips of some of its front pectoral fins. It's salt, so it's going to be cooler, right? It lives in kind of a salt and brackish environment, so the water naturally is going to be a lot cooler there. Most of the rainbows, about the lowest they want to go is 74.
Right.
They all come from very, very tropical temperatures. Even the ones that come in fairly fast-moving streams, those are still fairly warm environments because it's not super deep water. It's relatively shallow. So unfortunately, you can't have like a room temperature rainbow tank unless your room temperature is like 80 degrees or something.
Wicked warm.
Yeah. Unless you're like my fry raising room where it's like 83 in there at all times.
How do you do that?
I don't stay in there very long.
Okay.
I go in there and work for a little bit, but also it's the dehumidifier is perpetually running, so it's
Right.
pretty dry. It's not humid. And so
Right.
that-
It's like
that-
my fish room is. I have no idea what
that
temperature
dry
my fish room
83
is.
is not that bad.
Right. Like I have no idea what temperature my fish room is, but it is way above
Yeah,
70.
You definitely feel nice and toasty when you walk in.
Yeah, because it's like 70 in here. Like, we keep the house warmer because we had a baby,
Yeah.
so
Which
we
is
have to
smart.
do that. Well, spend a couple grand on insulation. You might as well keep it warmer in your house, right?
I would think so.
Which I will say, this is kind of crazy. We've been getting the analysis from last year versus this year, and we're saving like something crazy. Like we're heating more often. No, we're heating more often. No. Sorry. Let me start that over. We're keeping it warmer in here.
but using less power doing so.
Yes, but we're using like a crazy amount less in gas because our house is heated by gas.
Yeah.
Like it's like 60% less or something nutty like that. Like what?
That's good insulation.
I don't know. We insulated. We haven't even done the walls. We didn't even do blow-in on the walls or anything. All we did was the whole attic and upstairs and everything.
Interesting.
I mean, obviously heat rises, and that that makes
That's where
sense.
you're leaching most.
And then
of
we
your heat.
replaced we added a bunch of ventilation up there and some other things. But we're saving like a ton of gas, which It's just funny to say gas. Because farts, right? Okay, so I guess if we were going to go with rainbow fish, room temperature rainbow fish, not a great idea. Gonna need some heat.
Yeah, not really.
To
Most
some
of them
degree.
want to be a little bit warm.
Right.
You can get something like the turquoise.
Because I always thought like average temperature for rainbow fish is like 82.
Not really that high.
Maybe not that high.
Most of them like about that 76 to 78 range.
Oh, okay. All right.
Turquoise naturally prefer about that 74 to 76. They'll go hotter and be fine, but they're most comfortable in 74 to 76. Some of the bigger lake rainbows are more likely to go cooler, but that difference is usually like 2 degrees.
Right.
That being said,
Because they're high water fish. They're not deep water. They're
for the
staying
most
up.
part. I mean, they'll dive down as far as the tank is concerned full, but in
Well,
the
yeah.
lakes, no, they're staying up in the
That's what I mean. Yeah.
upper like 6 feet kind of thing for the most part.
Yeah, they're mostly up by the surface.
But you can get them up to, the thing is they're pretty warm tolerant, so they'll go up to like 86. And usually you don't have any issues because a lot of the breeders will raise the fry between 83 and 85.
Right. That's probably where I got the idea.
I try to target more like, and I admit that it is slower, but it's mostly because heating that high currently in my setup is a little tough.
Right.
So I try to stick around like the 81, 82 water temp wise, which is usually like 83 room temp.
Okay. That makes sense.
But if I could do so and only have them at 76, I would, because it would cost less on my power bill.
That's true. That's a good point. Dan Walker says, "Hey there. Any known issues with Bosemani rainbow fish and high pH and hardness? 8.2 pH and max KH DH, or KH GH. When I said DH on the test strips. Tried keeping 6 of them, and they passed away one by one over a couple of weeks."
Wow. So normally I would say no, because the rainbows come from harder water than I live in. But that being said, most of the time their hardness is in the 1 to 200 range, and their pHs are usually something like 7.2, 7.4. They like a little hardness to their water, but I would be concerned that with your hardness being that high, you might have some other, and it might be in what we would consider a very low amount by the water company standard, but some parts per million amount of some chemical that is too much for them. It could be something like, not necessarily ammonia, but you could have, traces of aluminum or lead or too much iron, something like that, that's messing with them. Do you have plants in that tank would kind of be my question, and how are the plants faring? Because most of our plants that we use come from fairly soft water and naturally are adapting to harder water, and if the plants are taking it, I would think the fish should be able to, especially if they've been kept for any amount of time by your fish store in that kind of water. The second thing might be, I would question the source of the rainbows. Some of the fish that are coming from distributors, their genetics have kind of worn down a little bit, so they're a little less hardy than they would be from some of the better strains. Like I have some wild caught rainbow fish that actually I just got in last week, and they're tough. I mean, real tough. Those fish have adapted. They're seeing plants that they don't ever see in the wild, and it's funny to watch their interaction. But if you just see them within a few minutes, they took an extra 24 hours courteous of USPS not understanding how express delivery is supposed to work, and they didn't care. They were perfectly fine.
Yeah.
And part of that is props to the person I got them from. He does phenomenal packaging.
Right.
But
who'd you get? Can you say who you got?
Yeah, it's Dan's Fish.
Okay.
Who's another YouTuber.
Yeah.
Out in Wyoming, our friendly fishmonger, as he calls himself, which he totally is. He's a sweet guy.
I got to go to Wyoming this year again.
Oh, yeah?
It's like my favorite place.
Really?
Uh-huh.
Intriguing. Just...
The Grand Tetons are my favorite place to go.
I would have pegged like Montana for you, but all right.
I like Montana. There's too much flat parts in Montana.
Sure.
I like mountaineering a lot, and the Grand Tetons.
Yeah, you get a little bit more to go.
I have on my bucket list to climb every peak in the Tetons, but who knows? I'll probably be dead before that happens.
Yeah, and from talking to Dan, he actually lives close to glacier supplies of water, so he has very soft water like we do, which made it even easier because they're going from soft water to soft water.
Right.
But I mean, if you are really dead set on keeping rainbow fish, I would look to somebody like Eric Bodrock, who's all Oddball Aquatics. He's out in Pennsylvania. He has some pretty hard water naturally.
Yeah.
He sells on Aquabit every once in a while. Lucas Bretz occasionally sells some rainbows. He has relatively hard water.
Doesn't he? Lucas has that giant RO system, though, right?
But before then, he was keeping tons of rainbow fish.
Right.
And, I mean, these are some people that, or at least in the case of Lucas live streams pretty often. That's somebody to get some advice for. Unfortunately, like, my experience is buffering soft water up.
Right.
And it makes it very easy for me to get to that nice, like, 1 to 200 TDS target range because my water is basically RO out of the tap.
Right.
There's so little in it.
I almost, one of my pieces of advice for people is often like, is don't fight your water.
Yeah.
It's a hard road. It's
Right.
a really
It's
hard
real tough.
road. But also at the same time, like, if it's something that you desperately want to do, I would look into getting something like an IBC container. Like, I have 2 of them back there.
Yeah.
They hold water. They hold, they're used for food. This is what they're designed for. They're a big plastic cube with a metal frame around them. They hold 330 gallons. They're used for for forklifts. They take them around and get 1 or 2 of those and fill them up with RO water and mix 50-50.
Yeah.
That's probably the best way you're going to be able to do something like that, and just kind of get in the middle. Like, maybe you're not going all the way down to RO, but get somewhere in the middle, and not do that with really big tanks, but do that with some small projects that you can actually maintain, because it becomes insanely expensive. Like, so it's cost prohibitive is what I was going to say. That's my fancy way of saying it's expensive. And if you can find somewhere in the middle on a reasonable size project, not only is the cost an issue, but you're going to encounter loss of motivation to deal with it. When you come down to it, and I've seen this with hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of people that are like, yeah, I was running this project and now I don't care that much anymore. And myself included. I get tired of projects. Like, what are you guys breeding again? Like, it does happen. You know what I mean? When you have had certain things going for a really, really long time, and it's going to continue to cost a lot of money, it's going to continue to cost a lot of energy, where you're just like, again, I got to go make water again. I've seen it with all the reef people for years and years and years.
Yeah, and my last piece of advice would be, there is actually a really good Facebook group for rainbow fish called Rainbow Fish Live. I try not to put it on blast too much because there are certain people who post there regularly and I don't want them to get blown up. But there are a lot of really good rainbow fish experts who are very active there. And many of them sell fish too. I would give that a shot, just kind of a final, I guess I would say, easy road to find some other people who are dealing with significantly hard water like you are, and see if they're seeing similar results, or maybe they understand why you're seeing what's going on and can suggest some ways to prevent fish loss and make it so that it works for you. Because in my experience, once a rainbow fish settles in, they're bulletproof, and even the ones that get some diseases or deal with some kind of parasitic issue or just some old age issues,
Right.
they live a surprisingly long time before they finally give up the ghost.
Right. Yeah. And that's kind of what I was getting to was, like, let's say you got some fish and you were kind of doing that 50-50 mix thing. So you're like, oh, my pH is, it's 7.2. I'm kind of, maybe I've got a little too much mineral, but it's not crazy. Right. And you got certain things going on. You breed them. You get a new batch.
Those are
Now you've got your aquacultured fish. Same thing goes with shrimp. Same thing goes with not so much snails because they actually have to build an exoskeleton, but shrimp, fish, a few other things also, and plants. That all counts. Like once you start to get the aquacultured version of something from where you're at. So you've essentially jumped a little bit to the next step in the genetics of what is going to be living in your tanks and stuff like that. So oftentimes, like as Bentley was saying, like there's certain people like Eric Bodrock, Lucas Bratz, people like that might be in similar place, like they've already bred those fish in the same type of waters, basically what I mean, similar place. That's the kind of stuff that you're looking for. You want to find those fish keepers, local hobbyists, stuff like that, that are, you know, they're essentially breeding the thing that you're interested in the area that you're in.
Yeah,
right?
Exactly.
Now, for Bentley and I, the biggest club that we can go to is the GSAS, which is the Greater Seattle Aquarium Society, and that is an open door resource to anybody that's in Western Washington to go find some people that are, you know, breeding the thing that you want to breed, and they're like, yeah, we're, you know, I'm on my 7th generation in our water, and you're like, oh, I don't need to convert some kind of crazy cichlid that needs super high pH. It's like, oh, well, I've been just doing them in our water for so long that they just don't care now.
Yeah, and the,
You know,
like kind of the final thing, I guess, would be, depending on where you live, how close are you to the Missouri Aquarium Society?
That's a good
How
point.
close are you to Maasai? Because if you're close there, there's kind of like rainbow fish god down there.
Yeah.
And that's a person who can answer a lot of questions.
And bring you eggs.
And bring you high quality rainbow eggs with Mr. Gary Lang, because he's got pretty much the best lines with maybe few exceptions.
And I like hanging out with Gary.
He's a hoot. I love Gary.
He's kind of crass like me. I like hanging out with him.
I think that's why I like hanging out with
That's
him.
probably why I like hanging out with him.
There's no
too.
messing around. You're gonna get the answer real fast, whether you like it or not.
Let's see. Leslie's Fish Room is asking, does anyone know if it's possible to keep an Oscar in a 46-gallon bow front, or would that be too small? I'm going to answer this one quite rapidly. Long term, not a good tank. Long term, it's not a good enough tank, and I wouldn't even. Okay, maybe like a Green Terror, maybe. Most other Oscars are going to outgrow that tank. And the big problem is it's not that you couldn't house them in there, like they could fit. But a friend of mine, I can't remember what's the black Oscar. You remember, you know, the big black ones? I can't remember the breed, but they had this huge black Oscar that was in a 40-gallon. It was probably like a 40 breeder or something like. It was like a 40 bow front, and it was just like, that is not a good situation. And some kids just threw some food in there one day, like people food, and the fish ate it, and the fish was fine until the next day.
Yeah.
When it came time to, the water was just fouled, you know. So certain things like that, it's just you know what I mean. It's like if I had a horse in my garage, you know.
Yeah, it's a little small.
You're like, I could put the horse in there, and it could just be in there. It's just so many issues.
Yeah, I would,
Right,
I would look
like
at
that
something
horse
like
got to run. You know, it's like, well, I take it for a walk around my yard. You know what I mean? It's just, and I'm not trying to talk down to anybody or anything like that. I'm just trying to stress the fact that long term, it's not a great situation, and there's a lot of other fish out there that will give you a lot of characteristics that you could keep long term, other than Oscars. You know, so you might have to spend a little bit more for the fish, but you could keep your same tank and get the same kind of personality, basically.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I mean, you really want like at least a 75, and realistically, you probably want something bigger than that just to give them room to swim, because Oscars do get relatively large.
They do get bigger than people think.
And you could do something.
Well, it's like you go to the pet store and you see an Oscar and you're like, oh, that's a really cool looking fish. Oh, $5.99.
Yeah,
Huh.
I think that's the biggest problem.
Nice.
They're such a common fish
Right.
that when they're young, you see them small and they're cheap.
Yeah, they're super cheap, and I think, you know, I feel like that's like, PetSmart and Petco can like kick rocks as far as I'm concerned, because they just shouldn't be selling that. They shouldn't be selling those creatures that cheap when you know the long-term commitment is a lot of money.
Yeah.
Just as a company, like, and they don't even have to do that. They don't have to.
Yeah,
Like, do you think like PetSmart's going to go out of business if they start selling Oscars for $30? Like, oh, they're going to shutter the doors. They're going to the whole corporation's going to fall apart.
No, they shuttered Dr. Foster's and Smith instead.
No, they sold it. Dr. Foster's and Smith sold.
Yeah. Well, I mean, they're a shadow of what they were. But
well, yeah,
I will say this, like, it's really interesting. So when I was in college, my cousin worked for a Petco and was their aquatic specialist.
Mm-hmm.
And this is like when we had my last tank before I came back to the hobby. And thankfully, he was smart and did everything he could to keep Oscars out of people's hands who didn't have the appropriate tank or didn't understand what the right tank to buy was. But I've seen far too often at a place like a Petco or a PetSmart where the people doing the fish stuff are not fish keepers at all. So they don't even know in the first place. Mm-hmm. They're just bagging up whatever fish the customer wants.
I've seen irate customers like freak out because a store owner won't sell them something.
Yeah,
and I don't know what that is. Like, maybe that doesn't exist in other countries or something. Maybe that's just like a microcosm of the United States. I guess maybe it's entitlement or something. I don't know. But I've seen people lose their, like, not just like get huffy and like leave. Like, I've seen people like freak out and like knock over a display because the store owner would not sell them a fish that they would basically end up taking home and killing.
Yeah.
And they're like, and it was, I mean, honestly, after the fact, because nobody got hurt and nothing really happened, but I've seen other ones, but this specific instance, it wasn't even a place that I worked at or anything. It's definitely a store that I respect. At the time, I don't know. I haven't been to the new version of it. I still haven't gone, but respect to the owner. And respect to that store. I mean, it was scary at the moment because you're not sure, do they got a gun? Do they got a knife? You know what I mean? Like that kind of situation.
How crazy is this
like,
person actually
going to kind of figure it out? Like, because you're already over the line. But it's because it wouldn't sell. And it's the most ridiculous thing because they wouldn't sell them some saltwater fish because their tank was not ready to handle them. And it was a Mandarin Gobies. And I don't know if anybody in the chat or anybody listening to the show understands Mandarin Gobies are some of the most beautiful fish you've ever seen. They are like a rainbow. Yeah. They're literally like, if you could imagine a crazy fish with a really cool personality that like hops around, like boop, 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 has a really expressive face, looks like a rainbow, that's a Mandarin Goby. And they are not that expensive. They're like maybe $50. Sometimes they catch them wild, and then a store will price them at like $39.99 or $29.99. Good aquacultured ones are, generally $59, around $60 for ones that were captive raised, which are the ones that you want, by the way. But the wild, the wild Mandarin Gobies only eat copepods. Essentially, they won't eat dry food. They won't eat frozen food. They won't eat. They will only eat live copepods, basically. And the problem is, Mandarin Gobies have a lot of, essentially, they have a lot of fat storage, right?
Right.
Because they go through these periods of time where there's not a lot of food because of the cyclical nature of copepods breeding and being eaten and breeding and being eaten, coming and going. And so they'll survive for a good amount of time, just bopping around and just kind of in that mind state of like, well, they'll probably appear, Yeah. Like they're just kind of like, all right. They don't freak out. They don't like start doing crazy stuff. They just sort of wait. They're just kind of waiting and waiting and waiting, and they slowly and assuredly starve to death because the food doesn't appear if you don't have a nice established system that has live food.
And the aquarist has no clue.
Yeah, being, you can add live food to it, but adding live copepods is basically like giving ice cream to your kid. You know what I mean? It's like, here's a 5-gallon tub of ice cream, 6-year-old child. Don't eat it all right now because you're going to have some for the rest of the week, right? And here's a giant spoon. You know what I mean? And it's like, and here it is. I'm not even going to put it on the table. As a matter of fact, I'm just going to set it down here on the floor.
Right where you can get to it.
And then, yeah, you know what I mean? And then you come back an hour later, and it's like they ate so much ice cream, and the rest of it's ruined. And that's, okay, now I got to go buy more ice cream. It's like that. You get the copepods in that are like, it's like a bottle like this, basically. It's kind of like, hey, it's a little bottle. It's got, filled with water, and it's filled with, live copepods swimming around in it. And you put them in there, and those copepods are just not ready to be regular. You know what I mean? Like, they're not just going to go in there and be like, oh, let me go swimming down into this rock and, like, find a little cubby and get down here and find me another copepod and maybe start making more copepods, right? They get in, you dump them into your tank, and they're like, ah, and they immediately get eaten by every fish that's in food.
Yeah.
Which is fine. It's not a bad thing. But to sustain that, especially for somebody that's like brand new to the hobby, that's clearly not experienced, they have a tank that's like 3 months old, and they've already had some disasters and whatnot. That's kind of who this customer was.
Yeah.
And then it was like, how dare you not tell me what I can buy? I can buy whatever I want. And the owner was just like, no, you can't. It's a creature. It's alive.
Yeah.
It's not a dining room table and you have an extra one. Like, you're going to kill it. So if that's your intention, I'm certainly not going to sell it to you if you're just going to intentionally kill it. Right?
Yeah.
And she's like, ah! And it was kind of crazy. I don't know. Sidebar. That was a long sidebar. Leslie's Fish Room wants to give a shout out to the Aquarium Co-op. Received my order of Dragonstone and the bag of spiderwood today. I got to say, it was very well worth the money I spent. Respect.
I love that bag of spiderwood.
That bag of spiderwood's dope. I put a link to it in the chat in case anybody's interested in the spiderwood. That's basically how I put that 120 together with the Sierra Stone and spiderwood twigs. Let's see here. I'm going to see if we can find a good question here. Grombull says, my favorite saltwater fish and kept me from getting into it. I would love to keep those at some point. Oh, that's the Mandarin gobies, what they're talking about.
Man, can I tell you what my favorite saltwater fish is now?
Go for it.
Because of Reefworks, because I had not seen them until Reefworks.
Oh.
I've never seen longfin clownfish before.
Oh.
And, oh, man. Like, seeing those in person, because there's not a lot of good pictures out there when I did a search. And I have a short video coming out like Wednesday about it, but for Reefworks, that is. And having seen them live, it is like the coolest betta known to man, because it swims like a clownfish, but has all that beautiful finnage, and the body shape with all those big fins looks like a betta. It's just crazy. They're so cool. On one of them, there's like some very pure black and white, and I do not know clownfish strains. I'm just gonna put that out there, except for like 3. And one looked very similar to a maroon clown, but then in longfin, and that fish was just absolutely stunning to me.
Let me see if I got a picture of it. Sorry,
Oh yeah.
There's one.
I was gonna say, we can see the tank.
Let's see.
I see what you're hunting through.
There we go.
Yeah.
That's a reasonable picture. But what is the image number? 9666. Ooh. Let me open it up. So we go to this. We go to the media files. Oh, then we got to click on that. Then we got to find...
It's like seeing things like this is dangerous for me, because that's the thing where I'm like, okay, I would keep that in saltwater. But then I know, like, the second I decide to do saltwater, it's a dangerous slope.
There we go.
Because I love anemones and all like the soft corals, and those are all real expensive.
Well, the anemones and soft corals aren't that bad.
Keeping them alive properly is.
Well, flower anemones aren't that bad. They're actually pretty easy to keep alive. My foot keeps falling asleep.
I like a lot of like the bubble tips.
I got the bubble tip. We're back.
Some of that
We're
stuff.
back in the bubble tip game again, you guys. Our bubble tips died when I overflowed and ruined my reef, but we're back in the bubble tip game. And currently, Vicky and I are playing hide and go seek with the bubble tip.
Is it just running around?
Yeah, it's all about hiding out.
That's the other thing I don't like. I can put a plant where I want it. It's there,
Right.
unless I don't plant it right. I can't do that with coral. They're going to do whatever the heck they want, especially the anemones. They're just like, oh, I don't like this spot. I'm going over here where you can't see me anymore. Like,
That's a good point. You do have a good point.
I think that's the other thing that
see.
helps
I don't know
keep
if
me
anybody
away
can-
from salt water, even though Rogue Aquariums is trying real hard to
see.
make me bite the bullet and dive into salt.
I'm gonna literally do Photoshop while we're live streaming.
Ooh.
So I'm gonna get
This is fancy technology I don't have.
Yeah, trust me when I say I don't have the actual Photoshop. I have the crappy Photoshop. I can't afford that nonsense. And I don't know that I even have time to
To actually do the amount of work it requires.
yeah.
Photoshop is tedious.
Yeah, Photoshop is weirdly tedious. So go to M2 renders.
So while we do this, I'm gonna describe to you guys something that's interesting behavior to me. So like I said, I get some wild caught rainbows in, which I will not say what kind of rainbows they are until that video is live. Although
Okay.
I will say when I first talked about them in a video, there are people in the comments who guessed correctly.
Oh,
So they know the right fish. It
Here's
is
the-
really funny watching a wild fish who has never seen crypts try to figure out what crypts are.
oh really?
Because most rainbows, they don't come from heavily vegetated areas. They'll have a lot of overhanging plants, but they come from lakes and streams that don't have very much plant life in them to begin with.
Right.
There's some emergent shore stuff, but nothing in the main water system. Well, they're 40-gallon long, swimming over the top of a ton of like tissue culture crypts that are growing out, courtesy of some CO2 pushing their growth speed. And so they've been picking at them, trying to figure out if they're food or not.
Right.
And it's really funny to watch them day after day start figuring out, all right, like, well, that one's not food. Well, that one's not food. I haven't tried that one yet. And there's 17 of these fish.
Right.
So just because one has figured it out doesn't mean the other 16 have. It's been a real like joy when I get home from work. I'll spend like 10 to 15 minutes watching them because they're wild. I got to be really observant of them, and thankfully, like other members of my house are doing the same. I'm just watching like swim around, and then one will dart down and start picking at the plants, trying to figure out what's going on.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, you silly fish. Eventually, you'll figure it out.
trying
And then
to figure out
all
what-
it is a giant spawning mop for
It's
you.
like trying to figure out what these plant things are.
What is this nonsense?
That's kind of weird because I do the same thing, you know.
That's basically how I order plants. Is have I ever kept this before? Do I even know what I'm doing with it? Yeah, I'll try that one then.
Yeah, that's pretty much how I go about
This
plants.
is the other reason I don't do coral, because I know coral is more closely aligned with the living beings we consider fish. Well, they're their own special living monster, but it's not like a plant where I'm like, yeah, it can wither to like 10% of its leftover, and I can still make it live.
Yeah.
Coral, it can't do that with.
Well, you can with coral too. Coral's the same thing.
This is real dangerous.
You can get them when they're real beat up, and bring them back.
If you know what you're doing. I don't. I have not a clue.
Yeah. Well,
I have not a clue of the chemistry of saltwater yet, and I don't want to dive into that too hard for at least a few years. At least.
yeah. I would say that like the easiest thing about, or the thing about keeping a saltwater tank is setting up a schedule that works for you.
Sure.
Because a reef tank will go like this. Like, if you do weekly water changes, do weekly water changes. If you do monthly water changes, do monthly water changes. If you do no water changes, don't ever do a water change. Ever.
Interesting.
You know how many times, like, one of the small stores I work for, we'd have people that come in, and this would happen like fairly often, like not all the time, but often enough that it was a thing. Is that people would come in and they're like, I don't understand. I had my reef tank for a really long time, and the whole thing crashed. And you're like, okay, and you have to do this like weird detective work to like figure out like what happened, you know?
Yeah.
And almost every time it was, oh man, you know, like it'd been doing really good for a couple of years and everything, and you know, I really wasn't like doing much to it, and then all of a sudden they decided to like get back into the hobby and like start doing all these water changes and stuff, and guess what? Now all the water parameters just went through the roof in a place where there never is.
This careful ecosystem is just going crazy.
And it's just like, oh, I hate to say it, that's your fault, bro. You know, like, and it sucked. It sucked to like talk to people and be like, I'm sorry to point it out, but it is your fault.
Like I've seen some of those reef systems where people do no water changes; they're just doing their top offs with usually an auto
for
top
years,
machine.
Years,
And
because almost all of
it's insane.
Almost everything that is in salt water isn't going anywhere. It doesn't evaporate.
Yeah,
Like, you know, the magnesium, that doesn't evaporate. And if something uses the magnesium, it has it. It holds on to it.
Right.
It's not like used up.
yeah, it just stays
Right.
in the system.
And the calcium that's there, it's not used up. It becomes part of the rock formation. So if that coral grows and uses up all the calcium, right, and then eventually there's not enough calcium for it, so it dies back a little bit, that leftover rock that's there is calcium deposit. So once calcium is needed again by the water, there's so much salt in it and everything that it will
right
break
there.
down.
Yeah, it's just gonna break it down.
Break down the calcium, maybe from another piece of rock that's in the system, right? So, like, if you get a CO2 reactor on a planet aquarium, you're just injecting CO2. You're just adding CO2 so that the plants can use it,
Right.
right? If you get a CO2 reactor on a saltwater aquarium, you're dropping down the pH, right? You're dropping the pH down in the reactor so that the pH drops significantly, which you're creating acidification. Right, you're creating acidification, which is happening in our oceans now because we're ruining the planet. But on a very small scale, you're creating an environment that breaks down the rock that is in the calcium reactor.
Right.
You're injecting CO2 into it to bring the pH way down. The CO2 breaks down the calcium, breaks free the calcium essentially, and makes it free form. And eventually, those rocks will completely dissolve and turn into something else. But yeah, so it's like you could get a CO2 reactor for a freshwater aquarium. You're doing something completely different
Yeah, than what
as
you're
far
doing
as
in
a reef aquarium.
Yeah.
But if you're somebody that like did planet aquariums for a long time, and then you're like, oh, wait, so it's just this, it's that same equipment. We're just doing a different process with it. It's like, oh, okay. Whereas if you tried to go into reef stuff without ever having an aquarium,
Sure.
it is like, you know, I don't know. It's like just here's some trigonometry. Like, just go do it. You know, you're like,
Yeah.
I don't maths, bro. Like, what? Huh? Yeah. People are freaked out by Common Core math. You know what I mean?
I don't like it. I don't feel like it teaches as easily as they say it does, but
I think well, what it is like it's doing is teaching the relationship of numbers to children,
yeah.
right? And it's like how these numbers, like if you take from here, it puts them over here. It does this, it does that. Like it's teaching the relationship of numbers, not necessarily like how to come up with, 4 times 16, right? It's
Sure.
teaching you more of the relationship, which I think is important for kids. I think it's important for kids, and
So the preface here,
I think it's really easy for us when we're like 40, to be like, huh,
well,
Man, they're
the
just
preface for
teaching
me
this
is
stuff
that
weird.
my brain is really good at math
right,
and seeing math for how it is. So when you change from what is older school teaching of mathematics to Common Core, my brain doesn't process that as well as it does just hard numbers. And my brain's always been like that. Like, I was teaching myself square roots and powers in 2nd grade.
right. Yeah, but do you know how to get to a square root and a power without already knowing
I mean, I figured it out when I was a kid.
13 times 13?
More than I care about.
12 times 12?
That's 144. That's my favorite.
Yeah, all right. We got that one. He's got that one memorized. But it's like, how do you get to,
And 13 and 13 is 169, just
Yeah.
for reference. But
but without having just the reference numbers, that's the whole point. is going like, oh, how do I get to this weird stuff that I haven't memorized?
Yes, I the way that I do math in my head is very strange for
Which
a lot
is sort of
people,
like, oh, well, here's an example, like in, language comprehension,
Sure.
right? So like we speak English, right, which is one
very poorly. But
full
we do.
language step away from Latin. So we got Latin, then you got Spanish, Italian, French, all that stuff in between to get to English, right? That's the stepping stones. It doesn't make a lot of sense to teach Latin to people that speak English because it's so far away, right?
Well, you'd be better off teaching German.
But it doesn't necessarily teach you that much comprehension of English, but it makes it much easier to learn German, Italian, French.
Yes.
Maybe not German. I think German's a derivative of something else. But
Well,
that's kind of the
it's
idea.
Germanic, which also English is technically Germanic.
In a way.
English is a terrible language.
English is great. It makes no sense.
Exactly. That's why
Yeah.
it's terrible.
I before E, except after C, and except like these
I'm
100.
pretty sure like
except these 100 words.
Spanish
they
and
don't do
Korean
that.
are the two best because they're the easiest to comprehend.
Well, English is super difficult because it makes rules and breaks them.
Yeah. Like the letter A makes 26 different sounds in
Right.
English. Why? Like why?
Cause, duh.
Okay.
Um,
Plants?
fish plants.
Questions?
Do we have to talk
I'll
fish
take
and
any of
plants?
them.
I haven't seen any questions on here. We're just talking about whatever.
The live part of the stream is where I love is just the Q&A side.
Oh, is that where you like it?
That's probably my favorite.
Oh.
I like being able to answer questions.
Chris
in real time.
Thompson, 9 times out of 10, something goes wrong. It's a user owner's fault. Well, at least that's my opinion, even though I have been at fault so many times, even when I'm doing my best. That's not a question.
But it's pretty accurate. I think if I've made 10 mistakes, if 10 problems have happened 9 out of 10 times, it is probably my fault.
Vapor deposition music. It's hard when people don't put spaces in the name, Makes it difficult. It says, I guess I don't understand the new method where people don't change water on saltwater tanks. Minerals can build up. We never did this in the past.
Well, so from my understanding, as long as you're topping off with RO, minerals aren't building up.
Right.
You're sustaining the system. Now, if your RO doesn't come in, if for some reason your base water is so hard that your RO can't get rid of everything, which I don't think that's possible.
Because you're pushing through the membrane, which will just divert.
Unless you've blown out all the resin in the membrane, right?
Well, I mean, obviously,
Yeah, but-
if obviously, if it's broken, it's not going to work right. But you just end up with a ton of wastewater.
There's a doctor who's really well known for having the no water change reef system.
Well, there's the Triton method, which is kind of a new thing where you're dosing and growing coral and stuff. The no water change thing has been around in reefs for a really long time, and it's more often than not has been not on purpose. Like I said, it's normally those people that
Because of neglect.
that did a really good job. They did a really good job, and then eventually it was like, oh, they kind of, they went on vacation, and then their kid did this, and and eventually got to the point where they were like, no, I've just had the top off running for like 2 years, and then people start to look into it and go like, oh, well, the coral's all doing fine. The fish are doing fine. Like there's no ammonia in here or anything weird going on. It's like, what's happening? What's happening with this? Oh, it's just evaporating and adding water back in, and then you eventually hit that point where most everything that is growing is either growing at a slow enough rate that it's healthy and can exist.
Yeah.
Because they're still feeding. You're adding food in, so that's a little bit of addition that's going in there. And it's just kind of sustaining itself. Eventually, you kind of just build up an ecosystem. And the cool thing about reef tanks is that all of the rock is the biological media.
Right.
So it's like there's a lot of space for lots of little critters and stuff like that to be
And while that can happen in freshwater, not to the way it ever does in salt.
Yeah, not to the same degree.
It's kind of crazy to
Yeah, I
watch
think some people might have noticed on.
live rock become live.
I don't know if Lucas Brett's put it in on my aquarium tour, but we were talking about my 240.
Yeah.
One of the big things I was working on was trying to get the 240 to be a no water change system.
Right.
And yeah, I mean, I hit that like 3 month, 3.5 month, 4 month mark, and it's like I'm doing more work to avoid the water change
Than just doing the
water change. So I'm like, I'm just gonna scrap this for now because I could probably do it on a system that. Well, all right, let's be honest here. I could probably do it if I didn't have a baby, right? If I didn't have a baby or a spouse or whatever. If I didn't have bills to pay and all that kind of stuff, then I probably would have the time for it. And could probably pull it off. But I just, at this point, I'm like, this is taking up time for building a new system for the springtime. So
Yeah.
I'll scrap it and just do a water change every month.
I've just gotten so used to weekly water changes that
My goal is to only do water changes once a month.
for rainbows, they really love
Yeah, it's true. Rainbows do need the fresh.
that fresh, clean water. Mm-hmm. So I've gotten in a habit of, with a few exceptions, weekly water changes.
Right.
And I've had some weekends where I'm going to have no time whatsoever to do them, and with the number of tanks I have, it takes time. Mm-hmm. It just takes time, because I don't have an automatic water change system.
Right.
One day, but I don't know. Like, rainbows can go 2 weeks and not care. They can probably go a month and not care. Mm-hmm. But if I want to keep them at their best, at a minimum every 2 weeks, preferably weekly.
Yeah.
And if I could do something like what Corey's system is, where it's like lots of micro water changes every day, or at least micro dilutions might be more accurate.
Micro doses.
Well,
where did this come from?
It'd be dilutions.
How did that turn on?
What did you do?
I accidentally. I don't know. I turned on somehow that turned on. I don't know. That was weird. Oh yeah. Oh, that's why. It's 4:30. Okay. So everybody hit the like button. Everybody went to check out the Aquarium Co-op, right? Because of sales and stuff. Everybody hit the Amazon link and all that, right? All that jazz.
Seems decent.
Everybody say thanks for Bentley coming out.
Sorry for being late.
Head over to Bentley's channel and check out his jazz because he's got some edited videos on there and stuff. Definitely, highlighting the rainbows and some of that kind of stuff.
And pretty soon I'm going to teach you how to hack a fluval light.
Me?
I'm going to teach anybody who watches my channel how to.
Oh, you are? On your channel?
Yeah.
I'm going to watch it on your channel.
And then we might, I'm still waiting for...
I should make a video of doing it ahead of time.
I'm still waiting for official word from Corey, whether or not he wants to do it on his channel.
Oh, okay.
If so, we'll do it there just because it'll show it to more people, but it allows you to do an actual siesta with a fluval light perfectly.
With the 3.0?
And have full ramp up, full daylight, full ramp down.
Full ramp up.
Or you could do a dim siesta, which also is... Normally you can't do it in the software, but we can use a piece of hardware to hack it.
Oh, there it is.
And make it work.
Oh, okay. A piece of software?
No, we use a piece of hardware.
Piece of hardware?
Yes.
Oh, man.
That'll cost you $13.
I'm not into that.
I'd take you all of 5 minutes to set up.
I don't have 5 minutes.
Well...
You were late. Now we wasted our 5 minutes.
It's only 5 minutes because I did all the test work.
Yeah, no, it's good.
That's not true.
I appreciate it. I like it.
James, who was in chat, actually did the initial theory and initial test work on it, doing a dim siesta, and then all I did was go through and further prove that a full siesta is easily programmable if you just apply the right methodology.
Yeah, I just think for my own. Is your siesta for plants?
Yeah. So if you're doing CO2, right? You're doing hard CO2. One of the common strategies out there to get optimal CO2 rates and growth is a 5-2-5 strategy, where you have your light on for 5 hours, you take a 2-hour break to allow CO2 to build back up, and then you go for another 5 hours of light. Because if you leave the light on the entire time, the plants will actually intake so much CO2 that your CO2 level drops off. So if you're trying to get, for some of the finicky plants or those really high-tech, like Super Show ADA guys, that siesta helps you maintain the best possible growth. Now, if you were talking like trying to plant farm, this would be something you'd want to do. The third reason you do this is if you keep a fish like rainbow fish, where they're at their optimal color and behavior in the morning, you can create a morning when you wake up and a morning when you get home from work. And you can see them at their best color twice a day. And potentially get them to spawn twice a day for those of us who are breeders.
Right. Potentially.
Potentially. Depends on if the fish decide to do it or not. But they'll be at their best color both times, and I've already seen that at home.
I've seen a lot of people
it's like cheating, and it's pretty fun.
I've seen a lot of people throw that theory out for many, many years, because basement tomatoes, that was all the rage back in the day.
Right.
And I'm just going to say you should give it a try and let me know how it goes.
Currently using it.
Yeah. Not you. I just mean the world.
Oh, yeah.
Like the world, give it a try and let me know how
I think
it goes.
I think it's something you have to get used to. You have to be doing it right. But I've seen there are...
I think it's kind of weird because yeah, I don't know.
You have to hunt really hard to find somebody who actually has data to back it up.
Well,
as
all
opposed
the
to just
all the hot house.
This is what I like to do.
All the hot houses used to do it,
right?
And they're reliant on their food production in order to make money, and they don't do it anymore. And there's a reason.
Yeah. But atmospheric CO2 is way different than CO2 in a submerged water system.
To a degree.
For those that like this method, this is how you hack it with this light.
That's what I'm saying. You can do it if you like.
If you don't do it. Don't even worry about it. Don't
All right,
care.
guys. I want to say a quick shout out to Joel G from New Zealand. I didn't say hi about your super chats, but thank you. James Leister, thanks for the super chat. AB Shoelace, thank you very much for becoming a new member today. That's our one new member of the day. We're up to 55 now. We just have to get to 5 million.
You're a standard American tank size now.
Billion.
You're 55.
Is that the standard?
That's for the longest time that was like the standard American tank, the big tank that is.
Oh, the big tank
was the 55 gallon.
That's the standard size.
They don't sell the 55 reliably anywhere but the States. We're like the only place where the 55 is a.
That makes sense.
tank.
I wonder how many liters.
We're
how
so
many
weird.
liters is 55? Math guy.
I can't remember my liter to gallon rate. The problem is I can't remember liters to gallons.
Hold on.
Or gallons to liters.
55 gallons.
It's like something like 3.
208.
Oh, it's 4.
208.19 liters.
3.93
That's probably why.
liters.
That's probably
to a
why,
gallon?
because if you'd be like 208 liter,
yeah, it's a weird number when it comes to liters.
and it's a weird number in centimeters.
Yeah, it's not an even.
It's super weird. It's like 140.
It doesn't cross over to metric well, which is why it's here in the States where we use those funny things like feet and inches.
Feet and inches. How many feet is that? It's a yard. Ah.
But then
Cool.
we do weights in a reliable method. We don't talk about stone.
Until it comes down to like bushel and hogshead.
So strange.
Hogshead is real. You know that, right?
Yes.
I think, what is that, 26.2 gallons?
Yeah.
I think.
It's so strange.
It's pretty weird.
Some of the weird measurements from olden times that are still around.
It's a hogshead. Anyhow, let's. So thanks to the new members, thanks to Super Chats, and a big shout out to our newest Patreon, Ethan.
Thanks, Ethan.
Thanks, Ethan. Shout out. Without you guys, I would probably just. I don't know. I don't know what I would do. I can't answer that question. Don't ask me that. Ha! How rude. All right, everybody have a fun Monday out there. We'll all be back at some point in time. I don't know when it's going to happen.
Stay awesome.
Stay awesome.
Yeah.
All right.